IVM.
I'm Zarina Poonawalla, host of the Empowering Series podcast on the IVM network. I am your peak performance coach and leadership coach, and I'm here to share with you productivity tools, life-altering techniques, and real-life hacks to help you achieve your maximum potential in everything you do, in your relationships, professions, and most importantly, your life. So let's thrive, grow, and evolve together, one episode at a time. The latest medical term, rather a threat doing rounds these days, is mucormycosis, or commonly known as black fungus. I imagine we're all trying to wrap our heads around what is currently happening, and so I decided to just dig in a little deeper and listen to a couple of doctors around the world who shared their views on this infection. So instead of causing yourself any further panic, let's understand what the black fungus is, and I'll also try and bring you some more information on the white and yellow fungus. So mucormycosis is an environmental fungus caused by exposure to mucor mold, which is found on wet surfaces such as soil or manure, plants, veggies. And in the case of COVID-19 patients, it is more due to the contamination of the oxygen supplying equipments, the hygiene levels, and the overuse of drugs. How does this work really? It generally affects the brain, the sinuses, and the lungs. And a couple of common symptoms are headaches, fever, under-eye pain, some amount of congestion, partial loss of vision or blackening or discoloration of the nose. So you see, what really happens is you'll see symptoms in and around your face a lot of times. Something like the inability to move your eyeball or the inability to open your eye, some kind of swelling or numbness, if at all. Even loosening of teeth is a symptom. Although some of these symptoms are common symptoms, try and look out for any symptoms that seem unusual to you and that you're not used to. Sometimes headaches do go off unnoticed because we're used to having headaches off and on, and something like this wouldn't cross your mind, but keep a check. Just keep a check. Now, black fungus has been around for a long time, and there have been reported general 10 to 15 cases every year as per a NAMES report. But just now, COVID-19 has given breeding ground to this fungus, and that is the reason why there are thousands and thousands of new cases happening every day. So why is this spreading now? Why is the spread escalating so much now? It's because of the overuse of steroids, overprescription, and self-medication of steroids. In the desperation to tackle COVID, we have caused an aggressive multiplication of the black fungus. People who have been on continual treatments and patients who have been given steroids early on in their treatment have higher chances of this infection. Also, patients with diabetes are more susceptible to black fungus. Patients with suppressed immunity or comorbidities are more vulnerable to contracting this infection. Really, do you know this whole overuse of steroids, overprescription and self-medication is something that people end up doing without realizing? Sometimes doctors do too. People tend to have the history of overdoing treatments, especially in India. We think जो hospital में कर रहे हैं वही treatment घर पे कर लो सब ठीक हो जाएगा. That's the mentality we have, without knowing when and in what measure steroids are actually meant to be taken, because if they're not appropriately taken, they do nothing for you. And if they don't do anything for you, yet they will do some harm to you. Black fungus is one of those harms that are coming in with the use of steroids in COVID-19 patients especially. So you're not anticipating the side effects of continuing treatments even after recovery. You need to know when to stop. A trial shows that you do not need to take steroids if your pulse ox is above 94. You must not overuse or self-medicate, and doctors must monitor steroid prescriptions as well, as it is only effective if it is taken in right measures. You may have questions about this in your mind. Is it contagious? That's a question I had in my mind too, because a lot of people are talking about the spread and how fast it's spreading. So you're thinking it's probably just like COVID, spreading person to person. Actually, no. The black fungus is not contagious. Thinking so will create more panic. Multiple doctors have confirmed this, and there is absolutely no need to treat it like you treat COVID. It does not transfer person to person. So you have to know that, and you have to understand that. So you can treat yourself well with it. You can handle this symptom that causes the infection and get the right course of treatment. Another question is industrial oxygen a source of contamination? Now, there have been previous reports that have shown industrial oxygen to be a source of contamination. However, it is simply a high-grade oxygen, and it is not the source of contamination. But when oxygen is cold, and the cold oxygen is unmonitored with masks or without hygiene maintenance, it becomes breeding ground for black fungus. Can this be prevented? Although this is a dangerous infection, it is also preventable if precautions are taken timely. So steroids must be used when needed, only when prescribed, and in minimal measure. Diabetics need to be well managed and controlled during this time. People who are immunosuppressant, people who are diabetic need to be taken care of, and they need to look after themselves. So please try and keep in mind that you cannot put burdens on people around you. Everybody's already trying to do their best. So don't be difficult patients, if at all. If you are a diabetic and you suddenly feel the urge of having sugar, it's not good for you at this point in time. So that is something you need to keep in mind. Similarly, people with any kind of comorbidities need to keep in mind that they have to take precautions to stay away from any further infections. Also, you need to stay away from too much information, because this is the most basic important understanding of mucormycosis, as per doctors, as per research, as per whatever you need. What's important is to avoid any unnecessary rumors, panic, and try and be alert. Those are the things we can do. That's the best we can do. And those are the precautions we need to take. So try to avoid getting too caught up with too much negative information and rumors. For instance, let's take one simple example. It's not contagious person to person, but that information has been going around. It's been doing the rounds on social media and every digital platform, and it's scaring us. So try and stay away from information that scares you. Instead, try and find information that educates you and helps you to deal with the situation. In the meanwhile, be safe, be well, and be empowered.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank the sponsor on the network this week, Cred and Sia. Thank you so much for making this possible. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus was joined by actress Shreya Pilgaonkar to talk about her career in acting. On Begin the Journey, Ashish Vidyarthi lists down the modern concepts of friendship and how one can choose the right friend circle in life on Begin the Journey. On The Habit Coach, Ashton Doctor was joined by Aisha Bilamoria to talk about running and developing an athletic mentality. Farhad and Sunethra are joined by LGBTQ workplace advocate Suresh Ramdas to discuss the new normal in queer relationships on GBCD. On Tere Mere Raste, Keshav Chaturvedi takes us to the riverbanks of Banaras and describes the soulful mornings to us. And finally, on the Positively Unlimited podcast, Chetna Chakravarti takes the fear out of the word responsibility. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Do you know Tamil? Tamil Puriyuma? Do your children enjoy great stories that inculcate good values? Hi, I am Ravishankar Balachandran and I host the Storytime Tamil podcast. I am excited to share a short story with great moral values every day. Listen to Storytime Tamil on the IVM Podcast app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from.